Hello, everyone. Good morning to those staying in morning areas right now. Good afternoon and good evening to some as well. So welcome to testing with brains or bots. Thank you very much for all of you to be part of the session today with Shweta Singh. As we all know, Shweta Singh is actually a senior QA engineer at Blackmagic Design in Australia, Melbourne. Some things about her that really stand out and I was quite keen to know was around her risk-based testing. She's got a lot of knowledge around those areas. Management tools, she's quite rich with that kind of skill set on various different management tools, as well as performance testing. So welcome, Shweta Singh, to the session today. Really happy to have you here. And it's all over to you if you'd like to start with some introduction, and then let's have a question and answer session towards the end. And to the audience, feel free to ask any questions in between the session as well, but I'll ask them at the end. But it would be nice to kind of see questions flowing so we can ask them at the end. So yeah, over to you, Shweta.
Thank you so much for the lovely introduction, Lavina, and thank you so much for having me. It's a pretty exciting topic, isn't it? Brains or bots? To begin with, we need to understand something that there is no bots without brains. And bots are as good as brain programmed them to be. And when it comes to testing, specifically, bots will only test what brain has coded them to test. Since they don't have any brain of their own, the bots, they won't be able to do any exploratory kind of testing in case situation changes. And as for me, I'm a manual tester at heart, and I just love and I enjoy going through each and every stages of the testing life cycle. Whether it's talking to people, talking to different groups of people, understanding the product right at its inception stage, understanding the customer base, that who will be the people who would actually go ahead and use the product that I'll be working on. Understanding the risky areas. I love working around the risky areas, just trying to understand the risk, and so that you can plan out clearly that where your testing efforts should be and where you need to concentrate more. Understand the priorities of the work that will be done, so that you are very much clear in your mind that where you need to put your testing efforts into. And then I just love taking care of the user experience side of things. If I'm not liking it, I'm pretty much vocal and I'm very much adamant of what we need to do. And if timeline permit, and if I manage to convince people, I make sure that the user experience of all the products that I work through are pretty good. If I don't like it, of course, the end users won't like it. But again, yeah, that depends very much on the nature of the project that you're working on. If it will have more number of users or it will have lesser number of users, but the criticality is a bit different. So now, again, that depends. And if you ask me, whatever I'll say now, I think you'll be pretty clear of where I'm inclined towards when we think about brains or bots. Yeah. So now let's have a look about how our industry have changed over the year with respect to ways of working, especially for testers. So let's not go like, let's not start with early 80s or mid 90s or anything. Let's just go roughly 15 years back. So at the start of my career, if not all, but pretty much all the companies, IT companies used to work in the waterfall model, good old waterfall model. So when it came to waterfall model, it included what were the stages in the waterfall model. So what we would start with the analysis, then we would do the designing of the product, then they would start coding the product, and then once development team, they have coded quite some enough, most of the application, then it would come into the testing phase. And then, of course, gradually it will go into the deployment stage, and then it will hop on to the maintenance stage after the product has been released into the production environment. So what would happen in that case was we as a tester would get ample amount of time so that we can peacefully understand all of the project work and what the product is. We would have a luxury of series of detailed documents to go through. so that we can sit down, we can understand, we can chalk out all of the test scenarios, we can create test cases, feed them all into the test management tools we would be using that time. Everything was pretty much detailed. And when we would actually get the code for testing purpose, we would just start executing them one after another. And then after that, we would go through the defect management phase. And of course, there would be some to and fro between the development and bug fixes and defects and verifying those things, doing regression testing, whatnot. So ultimately, in big picture, when we used to work in Waterfall, we would have mostly a couple of releases in an year, not more than that. 3 would be a big number to say in here about the number of releases that we would have at that time, but still 1 or 2 releases. And after that, we would go into the maintenance phase, and we would have some very less work coming our way that time. Yeah. And if you look at the customer base 12, 15 years back, so general public were still introduced to computers and everything, but still they were not part of each and every household computers. Yeah. And people would join computer classes that time to understand how basic Windows work, how Microsoft Office would work, you know. And if you look at the client base that time, it would be mostly restricted to the desktop applications, first thing. And mostly they were big banking corporations that you would be working for most of the times, and into the financial sectors. Yeah. Life was good basically for testers that time. We had luxury of time. We would follow all the process peacefully. We will have a big testing team with us that time. I remember when I started my career for one of the project, I was part of regression testing team. So my team, we were 18 of us, and we were only responsible for doing the regression testing. That's it. We weren't involved in doing the functional or anything. We were just supposed to do regression testing after all of their releases. So such was life earlier in the Waterfall era. After that, some processes evolved, and then we were introduced to the V model. And along with V model came some other iterative kind of models, for example, spiral model and whatnot. So things changed a little bit for testers, as in we started taking part in the product right from the inception. We would start getting involved, we would start analyzing the risk and whatnot right from the start. But if you still look at the release cycle, it will still remain be the same. Still, you won't be releasing more than a couple of times in an year. So still life was good. All right. And then some changes happened around the world. And thanks to the companies like IBM, thanks to Apple, thanks to Samsung, we got introduced to general public, we got introduced to smartphones. Not just smartphones, we got tabs introduced in our lives. And not to forget the big one, social media came into play. Yeah. And then since we had smartphones, gradually number of mobile apps started increasing. Not gradually, I'll say drastically they got introduced. And then at one point, we were having mobile apps for almost all the activities that we do. Yeah. And along with all of these luxuries came different challenges, came different competition. We got introduced to the challenge that we need to release frequently and quickly into the market. Unless you are releasing very frequently, it's tough to stay afloat in the competition. And forget about being ahead in the competition or something. Just to survive or stay afloat into the market, you were supposed to release quickly, and you have to keep releasing exciting features all the time. You have to think about idea, you have to program them, implement them, think about your user customers, and then release them frequently. And not just that, so ultimately with all of these changes into the world, we started releasing very frequently, which means now instead of releasing for a couple of times in an year, we are talking about releasing every month, or maybe every 2 months, depending on the nature of product that you work on. So we badly needed to change the way of working. And there's how Agile came into play. People started adopting Agile ways of working. So Agile is all good, helps you out, release quicker and all, but then Agile request for few things to work smoothly. Agile, it demands for some proper role and functions, and it demands for a proper team as well. So when it asks for proper roles, it's asking for a product owner, it's asking for a scrum master, and it's asking for a development team. And from all these three roles, it expects us to respect each other's timelines. If any of these roles, for example, if product owner is taking longer to do what they are supposed to do, the product timeline crosses your deadline for sure. You can't do it within the given iteration time or whatever the iteration cycle would be. So it's very critical that in Agile ways of working, we stick to our timeline. Cool. What this means for the testers. So now it means that testers, you are expected in a very tight timeline to take care of all the functional requirements. You need to make sure that whatever changes have been built as part of that iteration are working as expected. You need to make sure that whatever you have released previously into production continues to work fine. You need to make sure that the performance of the application is within the acceptable limits. You need to make sure that your application is able to take proper load, as in depending on what kind of application. Take social media, for example. So many people log in at the same time, take care of all the messengers or chatting kind of applications. So it should be able to take the appropriate load. And then you need to make sure that you have done risk analysis within that iteration time. You need to make sure that everything is fine. User experience still is good for all the users. And if you fail to ensure any of these factors that I mentioned just now, the products and company's reputation is at stake, and you might start losing customers really quickly. So I don't think some help would harm us at this point of time. So now let's go back to our original topic, brains or bots. Yeah, and now I think the answer would change slightly. It won't be brain or bots, but instead, why not brain and bots? And we can decide on brain and how much of bots. How much of automation would you want? Because automation, it comes with a lot of its own challenges. It's got a lot of pros and cons, just like maybe manual testing or any other things, yeah? So you can derive the answer for how much of bots depending on many questions. For example, what is the nature of the project you're working on? What is the duration of the project? And how frequently are you planning to release your project, the new features into your product? Yeah. If you go, what is the team size? Yeah. And if you have like more number of testers within your team, which is very rare in current situation, and you don't release very frequently. For example, if you are working on a weather app or something, you won't be doing a lot of changes all the time. Whatever are the static functionalities with that app, it will just grab that information and it will display to the users. Yeah. Take some simple applications, for example, calculator. Simple applications. If you're working on those, you won't be releasing a lot of updates every now and then. Yeah. So once you have automated a bit of it and you've got a couple of manual testers, you're good to go. But think about some banking kind of applications wherein you need to do very exhausting calculations to test, to regression test. So of course, to automate those bit will make more sense. So basically, if you answer some of these questions, you can make clear indication or you can make clear decision of how much of bots will be suitable for your product. Yeah. And just take care of the return of investment in the automation. It's very easy to do exhausting work or to overdo some things a lot of time. Whether it's manual testing, it's very easy to overdo. If you're liking the application, you just might testing too much. You know, we try to make sure that whatever product that you are testing, it should be 100% bug free. Now, such thing doesn't exist, like 100% bug free. You can find bugs in any Google applications, or even in Facebook, you can find bugs. So there's no such thing as 100% bug free application. What you need to be mindful of instead is, you need to be sure of what are the high priority areas, where is the maximum footfall of the customers, for example. Yeah. And what are high risk areas, which would cost the company its reputation, which would cost the product its reputation. So that's where you need to concentrate your testing efforts. So in general, as good practice, I feel the combination of brains and bots together, they form a good team, by the way, brains as well as bots. So they should be working together to make sure that the product is doing sufficient of what it is supposed to do. Now, when it comes to automation and even manual, we need to be careful about some of the good practices that I would want to share, that I do personally, is you should always put efforts into innovating the way you test. If you continue doing the same amount of test cases into in same way, and you're not, for example, if you're very much bored into your current project you've been working on very long, and you have developed some overconfidence that no, I've been working on this, I know how much possibility this product will have of finding issues or anything, you might start ignoring things subconsciously, so you shouldn't do that. You should always be innovative in the way you test. Let's talk about pesticide paradox a bit. So what is pesticide paradox? Some of you might be aware already, but for the people who are not aware, it's pretty interesting. So what happens in pesticide paradox is farmers, they use pesticides in when they are working on their crops. Yeah. So in the first batch, when they spread all the pesticide, what happens is they kill a lot of bugs, get pretty excited that, oh, wow, this way works, let's stick to it. So they keep repeating the same treatment over and over again. So what happens is gradually number of bugs that they used to kill or find and kill starts reducing. So what they need to do, ultimately, they need to change some combination of the pesticide they are using, or they need to find some innovative way so that they can keep having the same good result all the time. And it's amazing that how beautifully this example is applicable for testing as well. So unless you keep changing the way that you are testing, you're finding some new, maybe just try using some new tools and keep reading. There's heaps of articles, testing related articles that you see online. So whatever you read, you will always find some idea so that you can innovate the way you test. So that's really important, that you don't make it a stagnant process. You should always try to find what else can you do? What else can you offer? What can you learn? What can you implement? So that you will keep working efficiently and you will always be on top of what you're doing. Me personally, I've been testing for 15 years now. I've been doing, most of the time, I've been doing manual testing. But still, I don't feel like I'm done already. I don't feel like moving to any other skill set or anything. Because you see, with different domains that you work on, they come with different challenges. So it doesn't get stagnant. And if you keep learning and if you keep implementing new ways of working, you just won't feel bored of doing the same thing over and over again. And instead, it gets pretty exciting with all the new skill set that you learn and implementing them. It's a lot to learn, basically. And with Automation Pack, it's good to frequently review your Automation Pack, so that you can make sure that it stays relevant to the product. Yeah, it's very easy that if what happens right now is there are so many different offerings into the market with relation to automation tool, so that even if you're not good at coding, or you are not a dedicated automation tester, you can still automate a lot of things right now. You got a lot of record and play kind of things, or even very simple coding things. you get in the market right now. So what happens is, if you are into time crunch or something, what happens is automation pack is something that gets affected or gets least prioritized at that time. So over the period of time, what will happen is, if you're not taking care of your pack, it won't stay relevant to what the product is. There will be two different things. What your automation pack is testing versus what your product is are two different things. It won't help even if you run those. So make sure you find out time and you keep them updated. So one idea that works to keep them updated all the time is don't have a single point of failure. For example, let's not make it responsibility of testers only to keep maintaining that pack. If you educate the rest of your team members, right now everyone would have some knowledge sharing session or something. So it's really good for testers to keep sharing that knowledge as well. Do not keep it to ourselves so that we own that particular automation pack. Why not introduce developers and even product, if it's a simple thing, if they can do it, product team members or operation people, so that if there are some small changes, if they're aware of the structure, how you have structured your automation pack, they can keep that updated too. It's not only your responsibility, make it a team's responsibility. So that you can always make sure that your pack is updated to a sufficient level. And even if you have just updated your automated your regression pack, I find it really good. Just keep that regression pack updated all the time so that manually you can do all your functional checks with each and every iteration. And side by side, if you're running your automation regression pack, you will be at peace. It will give you a lot of time back into your calendar to do exploratory testing peacefully, because exploratory testing is what would give you a lot of new bugs all the time. If you keep running same test, for example, the regression pack, it's highly unlikely that you will find new bugs. So it's a good idea to just keep your regression pack automated, and then and whenever possible, of course, keep adding more to it, depending on the nature of the product, whatever is sensible at that point of time, and then make use of that as well to give you some time back into your calendar. Then when it comes to automation, it might not be sensible to automate a product 100%. Some of the areas, they might be very easy to test manually within few seconds, and while to automate it, it would maybe ask for a week or something, because might be complicated to automate that bit of the application. So just be aware of the gaps of your automation pack, you know, that and you need to be aware of the high risk areas of your product as well. So think that if that gap into the automation product, into the automation pack, and the high risk areas coincide, make sure you cover them into each and every testing cycle. You're manually putting more efforts into that section of the product wherein you know that there's gap in the automation pack. And another thing, so I joined Blackmagic Design very recently, and I was having a chat with my manager. He said one line and it just struck me and stayed with me. So I would like to share that. We were just talking about all the automation efforts, all the manual efforts and everything. And he made a point saying that if the product that you're working on will be used by computers, then go ahead and automate it 100%. It's perfectly fine. But if your product is meant to be used by human beings, that make sure that human beings test them too, so that you are able to find the user experience kind of things. And you're, you know, as part of exploratory testing, you test more. So those are my views. So ultimately, with brain or bots, I'll go with brain and some bots. So open for questions if you have any.
Thank you so much, Shweta. I think the way you kind of portrayed this, like taking us back in history, bringing us back to the new era, I think is really, really good. I really enjoyed that aspect. And yeah, please, everyone, if you've got any questions, if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask, I'll give the audience the first dabs to ask question, and then I'll ask my question. So anyone in the audience?
Some of my colleagues here.
Oh,
hey,
okay.
Ruchika. Hey, Manny. Thanks for joining, girls. Thank you so much for giving time in the weekend.
Hello, Sarah. Hello, everybody.
Hey, Manny.
Yeah, I do agree that I really like the way you brought up, I started from history and then explain why automation it's getting more and more essential for people and for organization. And I also like to point out how you actually just differentiate when do we need manual, when do we need automation. Obviously, like we worked together in the past and then we know automation is definitely a great tool, a great help for most of the organization, especially the big one, enterprises, and there are things you can automate and there are things that you simply can't because of UI, UX, user experience. I think your manager did bring out a really good point to say that if the application is being used by robot or system, then just go ahead, automate them 100%. And if it's used by human, then of course they need to have some human touch there to be able to identify the user experience expected, not being able to test it by the board, of course. Yeah, I really enjoyed it and I am so proud of you. Like
thank you so much, Manny. Just for people, so Manny, I used to work under her. She was my test lead at Wolters Kluwer when I used to work there. And same with Ruchika, she was my test lead at Telematics. Thank you so much for joining, both of you.
Really great listening to you. We hear, Shweta.
Thanks, Ruchika. Thanks for joining in.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So Ashish has a question for you, Shweta. Can you please share some practical tips or methods to avoid pesticide paradox?
Sure. So you need to keep innovating the way, Ashish, to avoid the pesticide paradox. For example, I'm just thinking of a good example to give you. For example, API testing. Yeah, think of it. And so when you are testing APIs, if you're doing it manually initially, you are going through each and every different condition. You're checking your positive scenarios, you're checking all of the exceptions, you're checking all of your negative scenarios. So the change or the modification that you can do when it comes to API testing is you can automate a bit. If you're automating all your happy path, and then you free up some of your time so that you can verify rest of the changes or situations manually, that would be a change in the way you test, adding just any different changes. And at Telematics, when we were working, we introduced quite some processes in the ways of working and way of testing. So we introduced a session called as bug bash. So what would happen most of the time is, so we were a couple of testers, Ruchika just waved at all of us. So we would usually test, we would usually do the functional testing and regression testing as soon as we would have any new releases. So we thought of let's educate more people into how we do things. And because as a developer, you would be working in silo most of the time. You would be just aware of your area that you have developed or you have worked on. But as a tester, you have got the wholesome view, the umbrella view of the entire product. Different areas. But over the time, if you are working in the same way, you subconsciously start ignoring some of the things. So we thought, why not have a session so that we are able to introduce a team with the entire suite of product that we have got in place and ask them to test for us in a fun way. So we introduced a session called as Bug Bash. So we invited all of the team members. So the product team participated, the operation team participated, all of the developers, they participated. Even people from different teams, they participated. Sorry, Lavina, are you trying to say something? You're on mute. Okay, sorry. Yeah. So we got participation from quite some team. Sales team participated, marketing team participated. So how we structured the session was, in initial first 10 minutes, we just talked and demoed the product again to all of them so that they're on the same page. If you have like good 20-25 number of participants, then maybe divide them into 5 groups or 4 groups, whatever suits you. And ask them to go to their dedicated room and then just do exploratory testing of whatever way they feel is right. So in that way, what happened was, so we got biased because we knew the application in and out. We know what users do. We know what we need to, we knew the gaps in the automation pack that we had, and we knew the high risk areas basically. So we would most of the time put same amount of efforts into those concerned areas itself. We were so much confident that nothing else can break anywhere. So the product that we worked on included mobile apps as well. Yeah. So with the users, as part of Bug Bash, so many people participated, and they had a lot of different models of the handsets with them. People even had Pixel 2 and some different, which are not very popular models. Even some of them had very pretty old handsets, which were still supported by the applications. So we got such wide variety of issues came out of that particular session. We spent next 2 days, streamlining all of the issues, creating bugs for them. So it proved pretty good for us. So this was one of the things that we did to take care of the pesticide paradox. And it worked both ways for us. We were able to educate the entire big team, and they gave us a lot of new exciting bugs, which we worked on for a very long time. Some of them were critical as well, but easy to miss since we had some test handsets with us. But since we didn't have those particular models, it was very tough for us to find those issues. So yeah. So just find a way, like Bug Bash is one of the options. You might not be able to, include all of the people. Just find some different way of testing so that there are some fresh pair of eyes looking at your application from testing point of view.
Thank you very, very much. Thanks. We've got another question from Jugal. And the question is, how do you stay at the top of your game? What self-learning do you do? Okay.
I was very comfortable in my own, space. I thought I just know everything. And I very much believe that with manual testing, the larger your vocab is, better tester you are. You can talk a bit more. But in Australia, when I was working back in India, I have mostly worked on in the finance sector kind of things, either banking, corporation, finance, the asset management, working on different financial products, foreign trading and whatnot, So they were not same, but very similar since they belong to the same domain. But when I moved to Australia, I have worked on such wide variety of domains. Like I started with accounting. Again, it's financial, but it was still different. The tax returns that you file every year, it was related to it. So the calculations were very different. I personally had to deal with the ATO, Australian Tax Office. So it brought a lot of basically variety into what I was doing in day-to-day life as a tester. Then after that, I went to another one, which was again accounting firm. Then I went something which was related to fleet management. Right now, I'm working in a company which works on the cinematography side of things, including the hardware as well as the software. So when you start working on these variety, you meet a lot of different people. They have got their own story. So maybe if you're just open to learn and open to absorb, and I can't do or I can't continue be a good tester unless I learn about these domains. I can't keep having my financial knowledge and expect to work good in the fleet management kind of area. I'll have to learn it. I'll have to interact with people. And I love interacting with people. So I think that helps as well. So yeah, and depending on your colleagues, you get a lot of push from different people. Ruchika here, I'm taking a lot of names here, but whatever. So Ruchika, she's really good at trying out new things, learning new things. So she got me introduced to a lot of new skill set and new technologies. And she got me into habit of looking out in market that what's new, how are others doing it? What's the best way to do it? So in the last company, we automated the APIs together. So Doing it manually was fun, but it was very time consuming and was not working for us. So ultimately we were out of option, but we had to automate. So she took the lead, she got me into it. So even I started understanding, and once you start understanding and learning something, if it clicks, you would just want to do it more and more. And then you end up learning those things. So I think with wide variety of domain, and just to ease up your life, just to get some time back into your calendar, you need to find out what can you do, how can you do. So you'll end up learning. So that's, I think, what happened with me as well. And yeah, hopefully I continue doing that, because right now the company that I'm working, it's on cinematography. I don't have any background with cameras or any recording or any video editing. I'm not very fond of, even on personal level, I don't do it very often, that I'm making videos and posting it on social media. I'm not into it. So, but now I'm not left with any option. I have to. So I think, yeah, depending on the nature of work, that pushes me and encourages me. Yep.
Thank you very much, Shweta. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Is there another question coming there? Okay, perfect. I've got a question actually. So what kind of tips would you give all of us here to kind of take away and kind of learn from them? And another continuing question with that is, you shared so many ideas. Sometimes in a company, depending on the priorities and severities of other work, sometimes we cannot introduce particular things at that moment of time. So how would you kind of convince the team that we should do it now, we shouldn't leave it later? Because then that means there's extra added cost, extra effort, extra people, resources needed at that time. So how would you kind of introduce a new idea when the team is being difficult? And then, yeah, tips to take away.
I think being a tester, one of the qualities that you must have is you need to have good communication skill. You should be, you need to be a bit diplomatic, because testers are often seen as bearer of bad news. We talk about bugs, we raise bugs. So in general, within developers and other, it's a misconception that we enjoy finding bugs. And it's changed in a lot of places, that we are now considered as we are working in one big team and we are working towards the same goals. But still a lot of times testers are not naturally involved into the project right from the start. You need to raise some voices sometimes, or you need to be very diplomatic so that you can squeeze in and be there right from the start. Yeah, so I think you need to be a bit diplomatic. You need to understand the structure of the team that you're working on. Because if you're saying something and if it's not being heard, then you need to be aware of who should be saying the same thing so that it's being heard by the rest of the team. Sometimes at the very start, a big push is required. So you need to make sure you're talking to the right people, you're talking the right thing. And ultimately, Lavina, I think if you're talking in favor of releasing the product efficiently, it will be heard. So if you're trying to talk team through, and if they understand that you mean for betterment of the product and it's not for your personal interest, or not just for making testers' life easier, you're trying to do something, sooner or later, it will get adapted. So yeah, you just need to prove, and it should reflect when you're talking that what your intentions are. And if you're trying to introduce any new things, you need to maybe give demo, and initially maybe you need to work a bit more harder on the same thing until the team is convinced. Because everyone has got the pressure. If you're working in agile, you've got very small timeline. Everyone is responsible, or everyone has to answer to their manager. Everyone has got different KPIs right now. Yeah. And if that goal, if the thing that you're trying to introduce, if it's additional work for anyone, you won't like it. No one would like it, basically. So yeah, it's in a big picture. If your KPIs are, you can just talk to your manager or whoever that the KPI should be inclined towards the efficient release of the product ultimately, whether it's cost optimization or really introduction of a tool. And you can always, okay, we used to do one more thing in the previous work, that we used to create a lot of proof of concepts. For example, if you want to adopt any new automation tool, have a play, give it some time, create some documents so that it proves that what all have you tried to do, how it benefits your product, how it saves time and ultimately money. Because automation, why people adopt it is for saving cost ultimately, so that you don't have to have a lot of resources on board, but it could be done using bots. Yep. And if you can prove it in a proper way, I think it's doable. And I think people listens. You just need to ensure you are using the right words and you are talking to right people, then should work out.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much. Great answer. Let's go for this question that's come in recently as well. One project may have huge amounts of tests created over the time. So while these practices of dealing with pesticide paradox, how do we deal with test cases which are obsolete?
You need to revisit your automation pack or your manual pack. So with the legacy kind of applications, and right now I'm thinking about banking corporations, you will have test cases one after another. And again, depends on, as a general practice, how do you write test cases? Very basic thing, but it can create a huge mess if you're not on top of it. If you have started creating test cases for each and every integration point between two units, if you have started writing test cases, you need to think and make conscious decision of how relevant it is. Depending on the nature of the project that you're working on, is end-to-end flow more sensible or integration bits are more sensible? Could be either, depending on what you are doing. Because once you have started creating a huge bundle of test cases, forget about any external who hasn't written those test cases, even you wouldn't go back to them. And it will get really difficult. So in most of the test management tools, you are able to create functions. For example, login page. You can create a function for the login page so that whenever any changes has been introduced to that particular section, you just need to update it at one place. And you don't have to, scan and read through each and every test case and go update them. Because over the period of time, what happens is, since you have written the test cases, you are the tester in the team, you wouldn't bother to read the test case while executing them. You just know what the steps are and you would do it. Over the period of time, what would happen is, it will get very stagnant. It won't be relevant anymore. And if a new person joins in and you leave the organization or something, it will be a bunch of rubbish. It won't be helpful for anyone. So make sure it's precise. And you need to, and if in current situation, you already have got a big pack of test cases, number of folders, subfolders, and each and every subfolders having like 15, 20 test cases, you need to sit down and review and maybe just get rid of what's not relevant. And if you're able to combine the test cases to make it more relevant, you need to do it. Yeah, before it becomes a unmanageable size of mess.
Thank you. Great answer. I think we'll take this as another question coming from Soumya. How can you motivate a tester who has just started their journey in testing?
Okay. To motivate a tester, I think it comes from within. First thing, you have chosen testing, you have come into this field. Once you start trying out few things and you understand the power of being a tester, I think, then you wouldn't need any external motivation. It will motivate you. You need to understand what you do and why are you there in the team. You need to understand that, okay, product has designed the application, then developers has developed the application, but then ultimately it's you who needs to give sign off so that the product crosses that line and goes into the market. You need to be aware of the responsibility that is there on your head. However simple the application is, if it's not working as per how it was expected to work into the market, everyone will be looking at you. Yep. So just take yourself as the barrier who is responsible for stopping any unwanted behavior into the application. So it is a big responsibility, I feel. If the product is working fine, the entire team gets the applause and praises and whatnot. But if a bug slips into production, people would be turning and looking at you. You need to convince them ultimately that it's a team effort, it's a team failure, whatnot. But ultimately, you were responsible for making sure that things are working as expected. The user experience is fine. The high risk areas were covered. And it is exciting. It's a lot to learn. Yeah, so hopefully that encourages you and not scares you away from testing.
Excellent. Yeah, that was great. Definitely worth doing those kind of tips that Shweta suggested. And of course, you should have your own willpower to learn something new. So yeah, perfect.
All the best to you, Soumya, for starting testing. Yeah.
Great. So I don't see any more.
Lavina, sorry to interrupt. I do have one more question for Shweta.
Sure, Vinayak.
Yeah, so in the era of bots, how can you alive the testing?
Sorry, say that again.
So in the era of bots, how can you alive the testing?
In the era of bots, how can you alive the testing?
Yeah.
Or so let me rephrase your question. Are you trying to say in the era of bots, how manual testing stays relevant? That's what you mean?
Yeah, you can say that if you.
Yes. Even in the era of bots, we need to understand people are behind those bots. People have created those bots with the thoughts in mind that they will ease up our life. If that certain area of the testing gets too exhaustive, it gets boring. And if it gets boring, highly likely we will start missing out on things. So to cover those aspects, we have created bots. It's us who have created them so that we could get help from them. Yeah. So, and again, as I mentioned at the start, bots will only cover what have you coded them to cover. If there's any change in situation, if there's any change in the product, since they won't be able to do any exploratory side of things on their own. They are highly depending on you ultimately. So they are there to help you out. They don't have a mind of their own to update themselves and continue being relevant. So yes, the number of testers that used to be involved in a project has reduced dramatically with the introduction of automation and bots and whatnot. But we need to be aware that ultimately they depend on us. And since our customer base is humans, ultimately it's human beings who are using the applications at the end of the day. You will need humans to test them. You will need to maybe do some funny clicks and test some negative scenarios and whatnot. So unless you have programmed your bots to cover them, you will need human beings to test them manually so that the user experience is still good at the end of the day. So a lot of people says that, yeah, there's no future in testing. You need to start looking out in different skill set. And I do not believe in it. So I think till you stay relevant, till you keep updating your own skill set, till you are interested yourself into testing, I don't think that you will struggle to find a job. You need to make sure that you are keeping yourself updated, and then you should be fine. And there's a lot to learn in the market. There's a lot of new exciting things that keep coming all the time to help you out. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
You and I agree with that question, 100%. Testing has a big future. Just that.
Yeah, a lot of people keep asking that, oh, you still do manual testing?
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Don't you need to change? What if you lose your job? I'm like,
there's so many tools coming in, and it's fine. It's completely fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's all the questions we've had. If there's any more, please do pass them along. Feel free to connect with Shweta. She's on social media. Shweta, you're on LinkedIn. Are you on Twitter as well?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm not on Twitter.
Okay, no worries. So everyone, please feel free to connect with Shweta, and of course, any questions, feel free to send her as well. Thank you very much, Shweta, for being part of the session today. I look forward to hearing more from you, and have a lovely rest of your day. And thank you for all the audience for being part of this as well, and your colleagues as well, Shweta.
Oh, wow.
Thank you
Yeah, I
very
got
much.
a great support. It was nice and interactive session. I just enjoyed my time very much. I was feeling nervous at the start, but yeah, then things just flew thanks to the wonderful audience and you. Thanks for
Thank you
having
very
me.
much. Thanks a lot. And bye, everyone. Keep yourself posted for the next session, and we'll see you there.
Cool.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.